welcome to Fan Made, the show where we talk to some of the most exciting names in the sports entertainment world who are diehard passionate fans just like you and me. And we're going to break down some of the best game memories, how they became a sports fan, and also some fun stories and traditions around going to games. Today, I'm honored to be have none other than MLB. You might know him from MLB Network. You may have seen him on ESPN back in the day. You recognize his face. His name is Robert Flores, otherwise known as Roflo. But yeah, we're going to talk to Roflo today. And Robert, thanks so much for coming on.
You got it. Thanks for having me.
Wow, it's great. And I always like to ask my first question: what was the first game you remember going to, and do you have any like fun stories around that or exciting memories related to that?
There's a couple that come to mind because I think they're basically right around the same time. My earliest memories of going to a game were going to see the Houston Rockets when they were playing at old Hofheinz Pavilion, which was where the University of Houston Cougars played. They still play there, but now it's renovated and it's called the Fertitta Center. So I remember going there, and then of course I remember going to an Astro game there at the old Astrodome back in the day. So those are the earliest memories I have of going to professional sports.
Great. No, that's two great teams to have seen. And where's baseball like obviously because we know you from, and I know you're a big Rocket fan as well too. But was it baseball or like your first sport you got into, or was it basketball or something else?
Really, I think it was baseball. That was a sport I grew up playing as a kid. So baseball was probably my earliest memory, but I was always watching and playing all sorts of different sports like kids or like typical kids do, playing football during football season out on the front
Yeah.
yard or in the street, or playing basketball in the summer or during basketball season, and then baseball in the spring and summer as well.
Yeah, no, it's definitely you do kind of adjust with each season on what sport you're playing. But yeah, no, it's definitely, baseball is definitely one to, especially with the Astros and, you know, given, how what you've been lucky to see a couple World Series last,
Hmm.
despite all the controversy surrounding some of it, like, you still get to, have two World Series last. And did you get to go to any, obviously being working with MLB, like, did you get to go to any games like with, obviously
Yeah,
besides just covering them, but just like as, a fan?
I've been to I went to games 3, 4, and 5 back in 2017. And then in 2022, I went to games 1 and 2 against the Phillies. I've never seen them clinch though. I never. I was covering another event in Arizona when they clinched in 2022, and I was in studio when they clinched in 2017.
17.
Um, I've seen some crushing losses. I was there when they lost in Game 6 and 7 at home in 2019 to the Washington Nationals. So um, yeah, so I've seen both good, but also some heartache moments too.
Yeah, no, I'm sure it's, you take the good with the bad, definitely. And with that in mind, have you been, despite although you didn't get to go to the, clinching game, did you get to, even if it wasn't World Series, have you ever been to any like Astro, like, records breaking or, any like perfect games or any, thing like that?
I'm trying to think if I've seen a no hitter, or I don't think I've seen a I don't think I've seen a no hitter in person. Yeah. Um, I've seen a lot of unbelievable things. I remember going to game 1 of the 86 NLCS against the Mets. Mike Scott and Dwight Gooden dueling it out, and Glenn Davis hit a home run for the only run of the game. So that was definitely something memorable. I was at that extra innings game that went forever when they played the Atlanta Braves. I don't even remember what
Oh yeah,
year
I've
that
heard
was.
about that
Yeah.
one.
So yeah, I've been lucky enough to see some pretty cool moments.
Oh, cool. Yeah, no, it's awesome. And who was like your favorite Astro kind of like growing up and like what, do you remember like the first like jersey you like wore, like had for Astros, or just your favorite players like growing up in that era as a kid?
Yeah, my favorite players growing up in the 70s and 80s, I was a big Cesar Cedeno fan. For the longest time, he was the Astros' best player, really the most well-known national player. Just really an amazing talent. Unfortunately, got injured and had some other things to deal with that kind of, he still had a good career, but it could have been, you get the sense of maybe it could have been a little bit better. I was a big Bob Watson fan, Jose Cruz, Enos Cabell. So, back when I was growing up, you really only got to see your local team and then maybe one of the other teams that were playing on the national game of the week, Saturdays on NBC, or maybe Mondays on ABC's Monday Night Baseball. So you really just got one team that you could follow and see, whether it be in person or in TV.
Yeah, no, it's true. It's so different now. Even for me growing up, like growing up in the '90s, like early 2000s, it was still kind of the same thing. Like, granted, I grew up in New York, so like you still had Yankees and Mets, but still, it's just
Right.
your local teams. And like you said, like you might get the ESPN national game, you might get Fox or something like that. But it's obviously it's way different. You have so many more, games at your fingertips, and plus with social media and phones, you can check to see how other teams are doing. You have so much more access to it now, but it's definitely back then it was just very much so like you just have your local teams and pretty that was pretty much it, as
Yeah,
opposed to
I,
like the
I
occasional.
remember being just fascinated because Houston at that time, for the longest time, was a National League city. So that was the only baseball I was exposed to. So whenever there was a chance that an American League team was on television, I was just so fascinated by the designated hitter and the
Yeah,
pitcher
that's what I'm
not
saying.
hitting. And so that's obviously not the case now. You can
No, no,
watch
no.
pretty much every team you want, depending on what provider you have or what kind of
Yeah,
package you
streaming
have. So
service.
definitely a different time.
Absolutely, absolutely. And with that in mind, getting to watch all the games, especially, with MLB Network, and getting to work with some of the ex-players like Martha Rosa and whatnot. But like,
Hmm.
have you ever like, worked with or even come across with any, guests that MLB Network, like someone like, you kind of like grew up watching, or even just like, someone you've always respected and actually getting to work with them, and you know, was there any player that was
Yeah,
kind of like
I
that, or
mean,
just
it's I remember, Albert Pujols, he just
yeah,
joined our team pretty recent and it was kind of surreal, um, you know, working with him closely, and he's a great guy. All of our analysts are really smart, dedicated, great at what they do. So it is a unique experience sometimes when you come across someone that is a all-time great player, like in the case of Albert Pujols
yeah.
or Jim Thome.
Mhm.
So it is kind of a unique experience when you get to work with them closely, and in some cases they're they're sometimes kind of leaning on you because they're new to this oftentimes. But it's definitely one of the perks of working there, no doubt.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, no, you're right though, because it is kind of like they're coming into a new, career essentially, and
Hmm.
you're like the veteran in the sense where, and
Right.
they're like the young
Yeah.
rookie almost.
Right. I'm the
So
veteran in the clubhouse for
yeah,
sure.
you're the veteran in the clubhouse for sure, man. And getting to go to a lot of different games and whatnot, like obviously growing up in Houston, but as you've gotten to like in your career and whatnot, like what's one city that you just love go outside of obviously Houston? Like what's
San
like one city
Diego.
with that has like the best like fans, just like best overall like stadium fan vibe?
Well, I love San Diego. I think Petco Park is beautiful. San Diego lost their football team. The Chargers are no longer there. So really the Padres are the only game in town when you consider pro sports. Um, so I love that stadium. I love the vibe around the stadium. I really like the city as well. So Philadelphia also
Yeah,
has
Philly's
a
great.
really nice park. Um, it's in a nice complex there. It's right next to the football stadium. The place is always packed. The fans are passionate and loud, and they get into it. So, those are some more newer stadiums, relatively. But I also enjoy going to Fenway Park. It's just like a living, breathing museum,
Yeah.
and you really can sense and feel the history, all the things that have taken place at that ballpark. So it's like I said, I kind of like the opposite ends of the spectrum, the newer, more modern ballparks, and then Fenway Park, which, like I said, one of my favorites.
Yeah, no, Fenway's great. And it's definitely, I like that it's one of the few stadiums that still, has all the history and like hasn't really been, renovated, knocked down, thankfully. And it's they've like kind of like an old like throwback to the old days of baseball. It's kind of like one of the living, remnants of that.
Hmm.
And it's yeah, no, and who's one player you've seen like play live who's just like, as soon as he's up, you can't sit down, or just like if he's pitching, you're like locked in. He's just so like it doesn't even have to be like your favorite player, just like somebody who's just watch, you just can't miss in that bat, or just can't miss him on the mound, or who you've seen live.
I have I'm trying to think. I haven't seen this player in person, but Ellie De La Cruz
Yeah.
is a guy that I'm always, if I'm flipping around and I know he's coming up or he happens to be up, um, I'll stop and watch him.
Yeah, no,
I've been
he's
fortunate enough to see Garrett Cole pitch in person a handful of times, and you know, obviously he's one of the best in the game, and he's got just a mound presence, and he definitely sets the tone and tries to impose his will on the imposing batters, and I just like watching him work.
Oh yeah, no, he's definitely, fun to watch live and on TV too. But just like you mentioned, that presence, like he kind of like reminds me of like, the days like, when you had like Roger Clemens or Randy Johnson on the mountain. Just
Hmm.
like they're not just only were they gonna beat you with their stuff, but like their presence, like, they just had an intimidation factor. And I feel like,
Without a
not
doubt.
too many guys have that as much now, but Cole is definitely one of those guys who has that kind of aura about him. Obviously you mentioned, some of your favorite, place stadiums out baseball stadiums of all time. But one question, if you could hypothetically, this could be, literally anybody. If you had four tickets to go to any, baseball stadium, and you could bring four people, it could be famous, not famous, alive, dead, literally anybody.
Hmm.
What team are you gonna watch at what stadium, and who are you bringing?
That's a good question. I guess I guess I'll take my family, and then we'll we'll see the Astros play the Padres in San Diego.
In
How about
San
that?
Diego.
Go a
Oh,
little
good call, good call.
little gas lamp district there in San Diego near the ballpark, and the weather 9 times out of 10, it's going to be beautiful. So that's definitely a plus, no doubt.
Yeah, no, for sure. I've never been out there, but just, I can imagine, all that weather just being,
Hmm.
and the park looks very cool too, and very like, modern. And it seems like it's got good fans too over there. Like like you mentioned, like that's their one team. So like, they're
Yeah,
feels
they
like they're all in from what I can see. And
yeah, they had excuse me, um the atmosphere for the playoff. I know they've made the playoffs the past couple of years.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, it's a cool vibe, cool place, and heck, selfishly, I'd love for them to make a run to the World Series, so get an excuse to go to San Diego and cover the World Series.
yeah.
But obviously, they got their work cut out for them.
Yeah, they do. And yeah, no, and so it's it's unfortunate because like they have, such you said with like Tatis and Machado, and they had to lose Soto and like, Snell, but just like they had so much like exciting talent on there. You kind of hope they would, make a run at some
Hmm.
point. And unfortunately, it seems like, the window's closing a little bit there too. But yeah, one question just to wrap it up real quick. Who are like, if you were to talk to somebody who's literally going to their first, MLB game, like it could be like just general, any stadium in mind, but what are like some, tips and tricks you tell them to like, look out for, like, in the game or just like in a stadium, like, in general, like about going to a game? Like, what are like kind of like some, tips and tricks you and advice you'd give somebody going to their first MLB game?
Um, well, I would tell them try to get there as early as possible. If it's a nice day, maybe catch a little batting practice. You can kind of really get a sense of what the stadium looks like. You can scope out where all the places to eat are, where the gift shop is, all that good stuff. Um, but like I said, if you go to batting practice, maybe you get a chance to catch a home run ball or something like that. And depending on what teams you're going to, sometimes you can see some really talented dudes put on a hitting display, for batting practice. So I always, when I was a kid, always wanted to go to the games. I didn't want to be rushed, and I didn't want to, be sitting down right as they were starting the game. I wanted to get there early and get set, get the popcorn, the hot dogs, all that stuff out of the way, and then you can really lock in on pregame and then ready to go for the game itself.
Yeah, no, you're definitely right, and I'm the same way too, and especially as a kid. Like, I want to get there early, and I didn't want to leave till like the last out. Like, I was one of, like, had, even if whatever the circumstances may be, I was always like, gotta get there early, and you can't leave until the game's
Yeah,
over, and didn't want to miss a single pitch or anything. But yeah, no, when you mentioned, like, getting there early, getting, like, spending in the stadium, getting like the good food and the drinks. Like, what's your kind of go-to, like,
go
food, drink
to.
order at a stadium?
It's it's probably a Dr. Pepper, Diet Dr. Pepper, popcorn, and um, I don't know. Some stadiums have really good nachos, other stadiums don't.
Yeah,
Um, I know at Minute Maid they've got Mexican food, they got barbecue, as you might expect.
yeah,
Ball the stadium in Arlington, where the Rangers play,
yep,
has
Globe
some really
Life.
good food. That reminds me a lot of Minute Maid, by the way.
Okay.
But yeah, so that's probably my go-to if they've got some good burgers or barbecue or Mexican food. That's what I'm checking out first.
Nice. Yeah, no, it's cool. And we're lucky, especially in the baseball stadiums, like, it's not just your standard, like, hot dog, French fries, soda, like, and I like how each stadium has their own kind of unique,
Yeah,
per
I
se, like,
mean it.
Texas with the, nachos and the barbecue and Mexican, like each kind of region has their
Yeah,
own,
yeah.
touch
When
to
I
the
was a
food.
kid, you got a hot dog and popcorn and maybe
Yeah.
a pretzel, and that's
Yeah.
about it. There wasn't anything kind of exotic or fancy. It was very basic, but the stadiums and the teams have come a long way.
Yeah, we're spoiled now. And I feel like, especially in baseball fans too, because you look at other state, like, even like basketball, hockey rinks, like they still kind of have the same, standard, stadium fare. But I feel like in baseball, we're fortunate to have, a little more,
Hmm. Yeah,
adventurous
that's
options.
interesting.
Yeah, no, and and thanks for. I appreciate this. This is a fun interview, and I'm glad you got to come on. And before you go, just tell the people, where they can find you on social media. Talk about where they can watch you on TV and any fun projects you have upcoming.
Yeah, you can see me at Monday through Friday at 9 a.m. Eastern on MLB Central, which is on MLB Network. And by the way, MLB Network is on Hulu now, so hopefully we're getting exposed to a whole brand new audience. And you can follow me on Instagram at Real Flow and on Twitter at just at Roflo.
Nice. Yeah, no, and they're doing a great job over there at MLB Central. Very entertaining. Him, Lauren Shahadi, Martha Rosa, and all kinds of guests. It's a lot of fun show. Definitely recommend watching it.
Thanks,
But
man.
yeah, there you have it. He's Robert Flores. And May. Thanks to Robert for coming on. Thanks to everybody listening. Please give a follow, like, and subscribe on Instagram, at YouTube at Fan Made Podcast, and on X or Twitter at Fan Made with LP, and also on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Thanks for joining. See you next time.